Here's a few running backs I looked at off the wire this week. First back, Devin Singletary of the Houston Texans. So Singletary, it looks like he's going to take the job over for good over there for this Texan team. Damian Pierce missing another game, and Singletary went out there with a monster game. 30 carries, 150 rush yards, a touchdown, a catch for 11 yards. So right now, exactly out there in 50% of fantasy leagues is Singletary. I know the last 2 weeks we didn't see much out of him, but after a big game and a big victory for this Texan team, he's definitely the starting running back, I believe, or will get majority of the touches in the backfield here for Houston. Week 8 at Carolina, 10 carries, 30 yards, 2 catches, 13 yards. Week 9 versus Tampa Bay, 13 carries, 26 yards, 2 catches, no yards. And then the monster game at Week 10, so Week 11, a great matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals here. That give up the third most fantasy points to running backs on the season. And this team's hitting on all cylinders right now is this Texan team. CJ Stroud possibly in the MVP conversation. Obviously, Rookie of the Year favorite right now, in my opinion, is CJ Stroud. Noah Brown, he's getting going. Dalton Schultz, he's playing good football. Nico Collins, when he's back, tanked out. So this offense is well-rounded. Guys are going out there making plays. And right now, Singletary, after a monster performance like this, I just can't see this team limited his touches, and he should be the favorite the remainder of the season back there, touching the football and getting the carries. So he's the top ad at the running back position this week. The next back, Keaton Mitchell of the Baltimore Ravens. I know Keaton Mitchell, he only had 4 touches to the Cleveland Browns, but we know he's an explosive running back, and he makes things happen. So week 10, 3 carries, 34 yards, a touchdown, and a catch, 32 yards. So right now, explosive plays for Keaton Mitchell the last 2 weeks. Week 9 as well, 9 carries, 138 yards, a touchdown. So right now, he's a game-breaking type of speed here is Keaton Mitchell. He's going out there making plays. I know the touches really haven't been there. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are getting work still. And Lamar Jackson, we know he runs the football 10 to 15 times per game as well. But right now, Keaton Mitchell, one injury to one of those guys, he's going to be the running back. And right now, well, he's still out there in 53% of fantasy leagues. And like I said, he's got game-breaking ability only on a handful of touches where he could put up a fantasy day. I would give him an ad this week. The next back, Ezekiel Elliott of the New England Patriots. Ezekiel Elliott, he's looked pretty solid this season. I've said on and off, touching the football in between the tackles, catching some passes out of the backfield. And right now, this New England offense, we know they can't throw the football well. Mac Jones got benched in the last drive of that game in Week 10. So Elliott, the last couple weeks, he's been decent numbers. Week 9 versus the Commanders, 6 carries, 17 yards, 3 catches, 15 yards. And Week 10 versus Indianapolis, a big workload, 13 carries in that one, 54 yards, 2 catches, 34 yards. So Week 12, it's a game at the New York Giants for this New England Patriot team where I think Elliott could obviously find running lanes, make things happen. And Stevenson, obviously a better receiving back out of the backfield, but for the most part this season, it's been a 60-40 split in Stevenson's favor. So right now, while Elliott's playing good football, and I know he's going on bye week, but he's still a running back to keep an eye on, and a guy could get major opportunity possibly after the bye week here. He's available right now in 59% of fantasy leagues. Next back's Ty Chandler of the Minnesota Vikings. So Ty Chandler, I mentioned him last week, is an ad, and right now out there 92% of fantasy leagues, but he's going to be a hot waiver wire pickup after getting 15 touches in that one, 45 yards and a touchdown versus the New Orleans Saints. So right now, this Minnesota Viking team, they're playing great football, winning 5 games in a row. Joshua Dobbs playing great since they traded for him a few weeks ago, and they got a great matchup with the Denver Broncos that give up the most fantasy points to running backs on the season. So right now, Madison, he got banged up in that game with a concussion, and he wasn't even playing at all for the most part in this game, and he's been up and down all season. So right now, Ty Chandler, him and Singletary, 1-2 options and pickups of the week here. And obviously, even if Madison does come back and he plays, I think Chandler's going to eat into the workload as well, like we saw Cam Akers over the last few weeks, where he got hurt and out for the season with the torn Achilles. So right now, Chandler out there in 92% of fantasy leagues. And the fifth and final running back I look to get off the wire this week here, Zach Charbonnet of the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of hype for Charbonnet coming into fantasy drafts in the offseason and before the season, obviously. And Charbonnet, the last 3 weeks, he's gotten good workloads for the Seattle Seahawks team. Week 8 versus Cleveland, 5 carries, 53 yards, 2 catches, 11 yards. Week 9 at Baltimore, 4 carries, 8 yards, a catch, 5 yards. And Week 10 versus the Commanders, 6 carries, 44 yards, 4 catches, 18 yards. So Weeks 8 and 9, he outsnapped Kenneth Walker with Zach Charbonnet. He's a physical running back in between the tackles, and he's a good receiver out of the backfield as well. Obviously, in this game, in week 10. He didn't outsnap him, but he still got a decent workload with Charbonnet. They still more of a 65-35 in Kenneth Walker's favor for the most part, depending on the game script. I know weeks 8 and 9, the game script was different than this close game that it was in week 10. But Zach Charbonnet, like I said, one injury away to Walker, or even a game or two missed, he could be a top 15, top 20 running back. Still needs in, and I see him being a solid running back that they drafted in the second round of the NFL draft. So right now, while he's out there in 55% of fantasy leagues and could be a huge game changer down the line this season, especially if Walker misses time, I would give Charbonnet an ad this week. So that's a few running backs I look to hit off the wire in week 11 of the fantasy football season.